The thing about losing what we have is that the sorrow is not for what is lost, but the sorrow is for that person who has lost it. So when I feel grief at someone leaving me, or at losing a job, or losing money, it's basically me feeling sorry for myself. And yes, our attachment to people and things is what makes this a human life. You know, we are attached to our money, we are attached to our family, we are attached to our children, we are attached to our jobs, we're attached to all the things that we work hard for, the land, the house. So yes, when that goes, there is a fear that rises. There is a fear of what is going to happen to me? How am I going to deal with this? What's going to become of me? How do I carry on without this as a part of my life? And yes, at that point, the tears do come, the emotions are overwhelming. There are so many thoughts that are swirling in our head. We cry, we cry. But grief is all right for a while, but becomes counterproductive after a while. How long is one going to grieve? At what point do you say, enough, now I need to figure out a way to move on? And it's very hard to tell someone who has lost a child, who has lost a spouse, who has lost their parents, stop grieving. It's time to move on. It's time to take care of other things. It's not such a big deal when people die. Because for them, that person that they lost is more important than life itself. But when you keep, and you know what is the normal thing that they do? They talk about it. They talk about it. You go to a counselor or you go to your family members and you keep talking about it. And it's beautiful in India, especially in places like Africa and third world countries, where the extended family is big. Till you're able to cope, there are people to whom you can air your grievances, you can air your thoughts, you can share your memories and all the things that happened. And that's wonderful. The family acts like a sponge, taking all your problems away. And usually, it's very rare that beyond a year, the gripping fear, the gripping anger, the gripping denial stays with you. Usually when we perform that 1 year ceremony, and it's there in most cultures, I know Hindus have it, I don't know if Christians and other cultures have it, but when you perform that 1 year ceremony, something lifts within you. Something lifts within you and you come to an understanding that yes, it doesn't matter how much I long for that person to return. It doesn't matter how much I want them by my side. The truth is, in physical form, they are no longer with me. And I can keep crying. I can cry as much as I want. Nothing is going to change that. It sounds very cruel. It sounds very like as if I have a lack of compassion. But life is very, very short. For some, it can be 20 years, 10 years. For some, it can be 80 years. At any point, you can go. And if you've spent all this time just crying and grieving and wanting something you can never get, Is there any purpose to it? This is not the way to live. You have to accept whatever comes your way, and you have to keep going. You have to keep going. New relationships get forged. There are ways that life creates situations that act as a healing salve to your wound. You meet new people. Angels are sent into your life that give you new purpose in life. You may lose your parents, but then you meet somebody wonderful to share your life with. And then the children come. And then your mind gets focused on their upbringing and their needs. And you stop thinking, what about me? I had that, and it's gone. And sometimes, after a while, you begin to feel guilty, as if you've forgotten your loved ones. But it's okay. It is really okay. You are not the only person this has happened to. We all face the same thing at different points in our life. You will get something, you lose something, you develop relations with it, you lose it. You may not have your family, but you may have wonderful friends who take care of you. As long as you keep thinking, oh no, what about me? How am I going to manage? This is a recipe for depression, for anxiety, lifelong anxiety, and for fear. How am I going to live? How am I going to manage? What's going to happen to me? Living your life consumed by fear, scared to take another step, worried that history might repeat itself, trying to avoid death at all costs, gives you no room for joy. And a mind that's filled with fear and has no joy cannot have an expectation of life giving its full bounty. You want life to be full. You want to feel that abundance, that flowing of energy. You have to fill your heart with joy all the time. You have to let the grief go. And you cannot deal with your grief, with your thoughts, by saying, oh no, I'm not going to be sad. I'm not going to be unhappy. Today I'm going to be joyful. That's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. When you go and see therapists, yes, initially it is very useful, very helpful. But I have met people that for 15, 20 years have been going back to therapists, talking about the same wound, the same loss, the loss of a child or the loss of a spouse or whatever. And it's like taking a knife and digging the same wound, not allowing the healing to take place. The only way you can deal with such grief is through meditation. Why? Because that trauma that you built up, that you created, that you built, submerged into your subconscious, cannot be accessed by the conscious mind. Never. You cannot even find it. It only comes up like a wave engulfing you whenever there's a little trigger. The smell of the perfume of that person, some clothes that they left behind, a dish that they love to eat. Then it engulfs you, and then the tears are uncontrollable. When you get into meditation, you go below the mind, below the conscious mind. You go into the subconscious, and there in the subconscious, these knots get released. And as you keep meditating and you keep meditating, it just gets better. Trust me, it just gets better. This is the only way to deal with grief. But if you have no desire to be happy, then no one can help you. Then you're going to stay just stuck in this rut, feeling sorry for yourself, missing something that you cannot get back, holding on to a memory that's nothing other than a thought in your head. It's not real. The whole story, this whole fear, this whole drama that you created about a person being there and not being there is not even real. It takes time. It takes effort. And yes, you have to cry when the feelings arise. You have to release the emotion. But crying itself is something that you're doing when you're feeling sorry for yourself. What do they call it out here? A pity party. That's a very harsh word, I agree. But feeling sorry for yourself is not a positive emotion. You are fine. You are perfect as you are. This trauma was sent to you for you to grow as a person. And if you don't learn from what is happening, if you don't move forward and move on, then it's just extremely sad, because this life is very precious. There are many things that you still have to do. Many, many things you have to learn to be able to pack away what was in the past and leave it in the past. It does not have a place in your present, and it does not have a place in your future. And every moment that you spend lamenting and crying and regretting and feeling guilt and feeling misery is a moment that could have been spent spreading joy, spreading happiness, spreading love. This is what you were designed for. We don't control birth, we don't control death. When something is not in your control, what are you lamenting? Even if you did lament, how does it change anything? Do you see that? The wise grieve neither for the living nor the dead. That's what it says in the Bhagavad Gita. And yes, people that are not in touch with their consciousness, people that are totally immersed in an unconscious outer world, totally connected to the things they own and the people they own and the children they own and the parents they own. Yes, the loss is horrible. It feels like a part of their flesh has been wrenched. But those who have slowly awakened to their true nature, they realize that life is very precious. This moment is very precious. And that if you realize that your life's purpose is to spread joy, then you won't spend one more moment lamenting in doom and gloom, spreading this gloom to everybody else. Yes, they were there, and they spread joy, and they spread love, and now they are not. That's it. That's it. Don't hold on to things you can't control. They're just fantasies, stories in your head. live this life fully, completely. When you're here, you're here. And when you're gone, you're gone. And nobody needs to cry. Not when I go, not when you go. If a life has been well lived, and there is no lamenting. If a life was snuffed out early, yes, it's very, very sad. And yeah, we must lament, we must cry, we must give vent to our emotions. Otherwise, it sort of comes out as anger. But if you truly want to change and you really want to get over your grief, then you have to learn to meditate. It is the only way these hidden knots in your subconscious get released. Om Namah Shivaya.